Mr. Mills, John Mills. Mr. Mills. Well, unless you have changed, Mr. Rentz. Oh, there you are.
He's much better looking. There's not much to pick from in this herd. Cutters and canners, cutters and canners.
Mr. Mills.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here today, and I'm happy to also say we don't have a lot of comments to offer. We want to thank the staff, the council. It's been a tremendous effort from where we were a year and a half ago. It made huge progress. We started off with the theory, hopefully the damage will be minimal when they finish. We really think we've reached a position on this plan where it's actually going to be one of those plans that we will like and we will like to see implemented, which is a sea change from where we were a year and a half ago. I think that's a testament to this process, and as been said, this plan's been vetted many times. There's been lots of comments, and I think that iterative process, that back and forth process has worked, and I think that from here, I'm certainly not going to prejudge the EIR or the final plan that we see for review. Haven't read the whole document yet, so I'm going just off the things that I've gone through that I like, and I'd like to make some suggestions on. I think there'll probably be some editorial organizational changes. Maybe we need a footnote here, we need a reference there. One of the things we want to make sure is that with our policies and recommendations that they are referenced into the narrative. Mr. Chairman, I would say in a lot of places in this plan, the narrative and the appendices act as almost a committee report, and they indicate the intent of this deliberative body. And when we pass this policy, this is what we meant. And so I think it's important that we make that link. And that's one of the things we'll be commenting on in writing. We'll be submitting comments about where we think those links need to be made. There are some inconsistencies, I think, that were probably due to the scheduling, but an example, and I don't mean to get into detail on this, but on WRR7, the scale and description of the term in the plans, the different types of plan, doesn't match what's in Appendix P, and also doesn't match what's in WRR4.
Oh, wait, let's get to it. WRR7 appears members on the red line copy
Right.
on page 118, lines 11 through 18. This is a recommendation on revising state grant and loan priorities.
And this is just an example of what I'm talking about, editorial comments, is we need to use the same terminology about the plans and the scale. And the example is, in Appendix P, we talk about other appropriate scale, but we don't use that. We don't mirror that here. So we need to make sure that we're consistent on that throughout the plan. So that will be one of the things we'll be commenting on, is to make sure that these all match up. Consistent use of terms, consistent scale.
Okay.
The next one is a recommendation that this is my narrative speech here for you folks, but the Delta plan focuses by necessity on the plan, but what we've focused on a lot in this plan is the efficient use of water throughout the hydrologic cycle. End user water use efficiency, SBX 77 compliance, agricultural water management plan compliance, a doctrine of being smarter on how we use water. And I think that we need to follow the little raindrop approach, because we tend to focus on the end user and his gallons per capita per day and the micro drip system on ag and so on. But in reality, this hydrologic cycle is dominated by the landscape. And imagine we're going to go up 100,000 feet and you're a little drop of water and you're on your way down from the sky and you really want to go to Hawaii, but God's really mad at you for some reason. So he sends you to California with some of the most onerous and complex water laws in the world. And the minute you touch that landscape, you are now a water of the state of California. And at that moment, the doctrine of waste and unreasonable use under the Constitution takes effect. And the point we're making is that landscapes have a huge influence. In Southern California, 50% of landscape south of the Tehachapi is owned by the federal government. The watersheds for the Santa Ana are federal. The watersheds for the Sierras are federal. The Cascades, the Trinities, those are all federal agencies who have a duty. The Forest Service Organic Act of 1897, the first thing they say in their Organic Act is to create favorable flows for the people of the United States. So the influence of the landscape on how much water we have, when it comes down, the water quality is all related to the efficient use of water on the landscape. So we're making two recommendations that are not in the plan. We don't expect you to stick them in today. But
When you say we, in this case, it's
my client,
your client.
And I'm certainly not speaking for the others who are here today, but I've got those here. I'll hand them out.
Okay. Here, we can pass them out for you. And then I'm going to get copies to the staff here.
And there's a little narrative that goes with it, but basically what I'm trying to explain in the process is that these recommendations only ask you to consider some research that's being done by UC Merced, UC Berkeley, and Environmental Defense through the Sierra Nevada Institute, which has application, I believe, to many other parts of California other than just the Sierras. But this research indicates that we can make dramatic differences in the water quality and the water supply that comes off those watersheds. And at a time when we're trying to adapt for climate change, when we're trying to squeeze the system as much as we can, it's incumbent on the Stewardship Council, I think, as the facilitator and almost the conscience of all of our other agencies to step back and take a broader perspective of the Delta watershed and say, are we doing everything we can to make sure that we're using the water efficiently when that raindrop hits the surface? And it's not just about SBX 77. It's not just about ag water management plans. It's about how we're managing the landscapes, what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And the research being done by, yesterday I was at the State Water Plant on a panel on ecosystem services, and we had Environmental Defense, we had Sierra Nevada Conservancy, U.S. Forest Service, the Santa Ana Watershed Authority, from basically groups from the Oregon border to Southern California, all explaining what was wrong with the landscape, why it wasn't working, how it needed to be changed. And they were not talking about something unusual. We're basically talking in many cases about what were pre-European settlement conditions, because it worked very well back then. And through decades of alternate management, we've created a landscape that no longer functions the way it should. It no longer is producing the ecosystem services the system needs. So I think that's one of the things that the Stewardship Council could do, is embrace some of this research that's going on, put together a stakeholder group, and all we're asking you to do is to facilitate the oversight of this and look at it. We're not asking you to fund this, but we do think you need to take a broader perspective, and we think the responsibility here ought to be to make sure that the Delta watershed and the watersheds in those areas that get water from the Delta is being managed in a way so that we're not putting more pressure on the Delta by mismanagement of the landscape. And it is happening right now.
Okay. Mr. Mills has given us a 4-page memo dated August 23, 2012, improving regional self-sustainability through forest management within the Sierra Nevada mountain ranges. The title, Delta Plan Recommendation, subtitle. We'll post this on the website. Of course, none of us had a chance to read it yet, but we will. And thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that.
No, I said I'd be brief.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay.